Once upon a time in a village at the bottom of a valley lived a poor boy with his mother. They were so poor they only had one cow, and that was their best friend. And when Jack looked up into the sky, he saw a beautiful castle made of gold and jewels. Just then, a friendly-looking bluebird landed on the beanstalk and asked, "Hey, why are you climbing my beanstalk?" "Your beanstalk?" asked Jack. "Oh, yes," chirped the bird. "Can we be done now?" asked Jack because he was getting really tired. But the bird said, "No, I need you to gather some wool from those sheep. I think I need some golden apples for dinner tonight." And Jack's heart sank because he knew exactly which golden apples the giant was looking for. They were the same ones Jack had picked for the bluebird earlier, and now the giant was going to eat them all before Jack could get a chance to escape. So Jack gathered as much wool as he could until he had a giant pile. Jack sighed. "What am I gonna do?" he wondered out loud. And the princess said, "Well, I overheard my father talking about how much he loves fish. And I know you caught one for the bluebird earlier. Come in," boomed the giant. And Jack opened the door. "Would you like some fish for dinner, sir?" he asked. The giant's eyes lit up. "Fish," he roared. "You have fish? Why didn't you bring this to me sooner?" But the princess kept chopping, and soon the beanstalk was nothing but wood chips. The rock hit him right on the head and knocked him out cold. And that's why, whenever you hear someone say something is as easy as climbing a beanstalk, remember the story of Jack and the giant, and how even the biggest problems can be solved with a little courage and kindness. Then Jack and the princess tied the giant up with some rope and locked him in the dungeon. "Thank you, Jack," said the princess. "I don't know what I would have done without you." And Jack blushed because he was starting to like the princess a lot. The giant was furious. "You stupid princess," he bellowed. "I'm gonna smash you." He chased her all the way back into the castle, and Jack knew he had to do something to defend her. And Jack said, "I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I must feed you through the door. I'm not allowed in your presence." The giant wasn't happy about that, but he was too hungry to argue. "Maybe you could use that as bait." "That's perfect," said Jack. "Thank you for the idea." The giant wasn't as scary as he'd thought he was. He was actually quite nice. "Tell me, young lad," he said, "why are you helping me?" "Well," said Jack, "I was hoping you might become a little less grumpy once you've eaten the fish, and then maybe we can be friends." The giant laughed. "That's very funny, friends, huh? No one can be friends with a grumpy giant like me. Now leave me alone so I can finish my dinner." And he ran off to find the giant. And that's when he heard a tiny voice say, "Need some help?" Jack jumped and turned around to see a little girl standing behind him. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm the princess," she said. "And I've been waiting for someone to rescue me from this awful castle. You have to get rid of that giant, but he's too strong. Maybe you can trick him." As quietly as he could, he opened it and took out the bag of golden apples. The giant hadn't noticed he'd taken them yet. So Jack quickly ran out of the room and down the hallway, making sure not to make a single sound. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see the giant lumbering after him, roaring, "Stop! Whoever you are, or I'll squash you like a bug." Then the bluebird finally agreed to let him climb the rest of the way up the beanstalk. When Jack was sure the coast was clear, he returned to the food cabinet and took out the giant's favorite snacks. Then he went to the princess and said, "I'm sorry, but you'll have to get rid of that beanstalk. If the giant finds out you brought someone here, he'll eat both of us." "All right," she said. "I'll get rid of it right away." She grabbed an axe and marched outside. "Thank you," said Jack, and he raced off to the castle. "This is my home, and I don't like strangers climbing up here without asking permission." And Jack had climbed right into the giant's house. Jack quickly hid behind a curtain just as the giant came stomping through the door. "Who's there?" he roared. "Who's hiding in my house?" But Jack stayed perfectly still and silent, and the giant didn't see him. "I'm sorry," said Jack. "I didn't know this was your beanstalk. Can I please climb up and see what's at the top?" The bluebird thought for a moment. "Well, I guess I could let you climb up if you help me collect some materials for a new nest I am building for my family." It was a nursery filled with all sorts of toys, and Jack quickly hid under a rocking horse. The giant burst through the door and started searching everywhere, but he couldn't find Jack anywhere. Finally, he gave up and went back to his room. "Will you help me?" "Of course," said Jack. "What can I do?" If the giant found him again, there was no telling what he would do. And that's when Jack's eyes fell on a tiny key on a nearby table. "Maybe this will help," he said, and he went to look for a lock to fit it. "Wow," he said. Maybe those beans weren't such a bad trade after all. So he decided to climb the beanstalk and see where it would take him. But one day, Jack's mom said, "I'm so hungry I could eat one of the cow's ears," which upset Jack because he didn't want to kill their only friend. So he took the cow to market and traded it for 5 magic beans. "What?" cried his mom when she saw the beans. "Are you out of your mind? We can't eat these." And then she threw the beans out the window. But that night something magical happened. The beans sprouted into a massive beanstalk that reached all the way up into the clouds. As he climbed higher and higher, the air grew colder and colder until Jack started shivering from head to toe. So the bluebird led Jack to a field full of the most delicious-looking fruit he'd ever seen. "Pick some of these golden apples for me," she said. And Jack picked as many as he could carry, even though his arms started aching after a while. Then the bluebird led him to a sparkling lake where fish were jumping up and down. "Catch one of those fish for me," she said. And Jack did his best to keep up with her. He slipped and almost fell into the lake, but he managed to grab onto some rocks and pull himself out just in time. Then the bluebird led him to a big field full of fluffy sheep. Now, as soon as he got inside, Jack realized this wasn't just any castle. It was the home of a terrible giant who was known throughout the land for eating people. The giant walked over to his food cabinet and started rummaging around. He grumbled. So Jack crept out from behind the curtain and tiptoed over to the food cabinet. Jack ran and ran until he found a door and slipped inside. And Jack knew he had to come up with a plan to escape. He found a door at the end of the room, but when he tried the key, it didn't work. "How do you want to trick him?" asked Jack. He snuck into the kitchen and put the fish on a plate. Then he went back to the door and knocked loudly. And as Jack handed him the plate, he felt something strange. Jack didn't know what else to do, so he retreated back to the nursery and waited for the giant to fall asleep. Just then, the giant woke up and came running after her. "Hey, stop," he yelled. "Don't cut down my beanstalk." He picked up the biggest rock he could find and threw it at the giant. They became best friends and ruled the kingdom together forever after the end.